And I don't know if we are live yet. And yes, we are. We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Knowledge is Power podcast live with your host, Tony Renfro. And I've got some special guests here today. With me is mine and your good friend from Beaumont, Texas, attorney Shannon Holmes. Shannon office is in Dallas, Texas. He has an office in Dallas, Texas, and he is here to help us find out and how to, let's say, uh, learn more about our family legal matters. And my special guest to my left top is the Jessica Crawford. And Jessica is an attorney of the Jessica Crawford Law Firm in Humble, Texas. Hello, Jessica.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad to have you as well. And along with that, I have also Jessica. How many years did you spend here in the channels at Channel 6 before you became an attorney?
Yeah, I spent 5 years at KFDM Channel 6. And the last few years there, I was the weekend anchor. So I think a lot of people know me from that in the Southeast Texas area.
Right. So Shannon is from Beaumont, Texas, graduate of Westbrook Bruins. And Shannon, no, you didn't. Oh, that's right. You went to Kelly.
That's right.
Yeah, my son.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I
know. Right?
Bulldogs. Okay. Hey, Shannon
right.
is here to help us here in Southeast Texas. I've been talking about a lot of things. I've been going over finances, education, health, money management, and it all boils down to a lot of things. We need to learn more about our legal matters, family legal matters. And I've got attorneys here. And my viewers, I want you to understand, we're going to be talking about tonight about practice area. We're talking about estate planning. I want you to feel secure knowing that you have made provision for your family with assistance from our law firm, from any law firm. But these guys here has a unique law firm, and I'm going to unfold that with you in a few minutes. And also, we're going to talk about business organization, and I think Mrs. Crawford from the Crawford Law Firm is going to express to us how to start a business with the confidence of knowing an attorney has helped you through the process of following the right proper paperwork. That's, and yes, Shannon and I, we talked about that before backstage before we was on the air. So we're going to talk about that also, because I'm not the only one who wants to start a new business, or I'm sure our viewers out there has a dream of starting their own business. But I want to make sure you have the proper paperwork to have that business, so you'll be legal. And also we'll talk about just how to reach out. Just basically, this is a continuation of our last Tuesday podcast when we had the funeral directors here, and we discussed about what to do if we lose a loved one, how to transfer the deeds to the homes, or how to recover the process necessary paperwork to move on and after death. Do we have enough insurance, or do we have a will? And we want to talk about having a will also. I really want them to understand what the importance of having a will, and how that will help you down the road with your siblings and loved ones. So that's I have a lot to unfold tonight, and I hope we have a good viewers tonight. And I'm sure I want you all viewers to please share our page, my Knowledge is Power podcast live. Share with everyone you know, so everyone can get a chance to hear some of the most important information that we're going to pass out and dish out to you. And if you have comments, please type in your comments in the comment box, and we would ask those questions. It would be like a question and answer segment at the end. So with that, I'm going to start with Miss Jessica Crawford. Tell me and tell the viewers, what is the first steps and the reason why we're doing, why it's important to have a will?
Okay, so it is abundantly important to have a will. And I was actually just looking at an article that was on essence.com, and it was saying how few Black people actually have a will and how few Americans actually have a will. And so having a will, it's a lot more than something that's just for you. It's a way of looking out for your family. It's a way of looking out for your community. And also it's a way of preserving everything that you have worked for. And for it to be so of such importance, it's actually something that's really so easy to get done, especially if you have a rather simple estate plan that you're doing. And so pretty much you're going to be able to find a lot of attorneys who are able to help you with your estate. And it's an incredibly simple process. All you have to do is just tell an attorney, hey, I'm interested in getting an estate plan going. And they can help you. And usually they're going to start out by giving you sort of a questionnaire. And you're going to go through the questionnaire and you're just going to say, well, this is how many kids I have. This is who I'm married to. And these are the things I have. And this is what I would like done with them. And from that process, you're going to go back and forth with an attorney. That attorney is going to ask you just some important questions, bring some things to light that maybe you weren't thinking about. And then you have your document, you're ready to go. You get 2 witnesses and a notary, and then you're protected. It's really a very simple process, but it means so much. It means so much to your family and to the community as a whole.
Well, Shannon, you want to chime in a little bit on that?
Absolutely. I mean, just to piggyback off what Jessica was saying, how utterly important it is, not only for yourself, but for your loved ones. So when I talk to groups, I tell them just by my own personal experience, because, you should know your significant other pretty well. So I know, God forbid, untimely death for me, and what state that will put my wife and my kids in. So what I've done is I've written out everything that needs to be done in the event that occurs. So the will's in place, all the directions for what should happen after that. And I mean, all the way through my whole service is written out. And I stress that to my clients, young and old, because again, it's one thing when we think about death from an older person perspective. But when we're talking about those of us, especially the African-American males leading our households, and no disrespect to the ladies, but as men, just making sure our house is in order, making sure all those documents are in place so that, all my wife has to do is pull out a folder and everything is there for her to move forward. I'm sure, and I'm just going to piggyback off Jessica. I know she specializes a little bit more in estate planning, but there's so many little things we can do, and I'll let Jessica build on these, but just as simple as on your bank accounts, payable on death on your bank accounts. So essentially, that would give in a marriage situation, say a husband puts his wife on as payable on death, and it's a separate account. Well, his wife won't have access to the account until he dies, and vice versa. But immediately, those funds become available to that person. And so those are little things, because sometimes we don't think about when we have someone who dies, and they may have retirement funds or other funds that you can't get to those immediately. But the person, the surviving spouse, if you will, needs funds to continue moving forward, and needs funds for final arrangements and et cetera. So there are little bitty steps that I'm sure Jessica will go over that can be put in place to help facilitate when someone dies.
Well, tell me this, what is very important to have immediately, because you have a household of a wife and husband, and the husband really is the one who's making the most money, and the wife is, of course, making average income. But the husband passes away and leaves the spouse with less income coming in. So, is there any type of different supplemental insurance that they can have to replace that lost income?
Sure. I mean, in my past life, I did financial services before I became an attorney. So, I mean, it's critical when meeting with your insurance, representative, that they go through an analysis to ensure that they put together a number that covers that amount for loss of income and other incidentals. So it's just, obviously, Tony, whole life is critical, but, buying whole life, it depends on when you buy whole life, and it's not the most affordable at certain points in our lives. So sometimes just getting a good, strong term policy is the best option. But yeah, I think it really boils down, every situation is going to be different. And it's just a matter of understanding what those income needs are and projecting those out forward, depending upon when that death occurs.
Hey, now one of the good thing about the new day attorneys now, and it's so easy to get access to an attorney now, is that you guys are doing most of your work online. I mean, the client does not have to even come to your office. Even if you're in Dallas and you're Jessica, you're in Humboldt, they can go to your website and contact you, and everything is done remotely, correct?
Yes, there are so many things that can be done remotely these days, and really very securely. And that's the big benefit to that, especially right now, as we're dealing with COVID-19, and a lot of people are feeling safer just, being at home, or just in general, you don't want to travel. It's less cost, less expense. A lot of things are being done online, and really, as far as estate planning goes that we're talking about right now, that's really one of the most simple things that can be done online.
Well, if we want to, let's see, what is the best thing? I'm not going to throw off the subject here, but Robert Lewis out of San Antonio is asking, and I think we just answered that question, Robert, before you post this up. So, and he's saying, can you complete this process remotely? And I think we just answered that question, right, guys?
No, I'll chime in here. If he's asking if he can probably engage either one of us online, or any attorney for that matter, through an online process or digital process. However, if we're talking specifically about putting a will, for instance, in place, sure, if he engaged Jessica could draft his will for him, his documents after they have some time to visit. But in terms of the actual signing, that part would have to be done in person. There's some pieces that have to be done in person. And I know during COVID, Jessica, as you probably know, that the governor gave us some allowances on that, specifically with the notaries. But right. I don't know about you, but we were struggling with the witness issue. So if you want to expound on that, please.
Yes. Okay. So whenever you are getting whenever you're executing your will, so you're doing everything that's going to make all of those words effective, you need 2 witnesses. At the very least, you need 2 witnesses that are over the age of 14. But really, we want to take it to another level, and just to make sure that in case anybody is trying to contest your will, it's going to be ironclad. And you do that by adding in a self-proving affidavit. And so for that, you're going to need basically your 2 witnesses. You and your 2 witnesses go see a notary. And that can be done with just you guys. Y'all can go to wherever it is that you have your notary, whether you go to UPS or FedEx or your library, and you can do it there. Now that part does have to be done in person, or sometimes, like in Texas, they do have the allowances right now as far as having the notary, but I still think that it's important, just in case you're always wanting to anticipate a will contest. You're always going to want to anticipate somebody coming up later and saying that what you did wasn't good enough. So that part will be in person, but it's very brief. It's very brief, and it can get done really quickly.
Oh, he has one more question.
Go
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shannon.
No, I was just going to say that just to kind of sum up what Jessica was saying. So in Texas, the strongest wills, if you will, are those that have the self-proven affidavit, which comes with 2 witnesses and a notary. I just wanted to make that clear for your audience, because I know last week there were some questions about what's a will, what's a valid will, et cetera. So in Texas, you want to have the 2 witnesses, yourself, and a notary signing the documents.
Okay, great. Do you need a professional in the state that you live in, or can your guests cross states lines? That's another question from Robert E. Lewis.
So as you, Robert, when you're saying guest, like, do you mean like, can you have a witness from across state lines? Generally, lawyers are licensed in specific states, and they can pretty much just serve those states when it's coming to something that is state law. And wills, they're going to be state law, so you are going to need to have someone you're going to need an attorney who is licensed in your state, in the state of Texas.
Okay, guys, let me ask you this question here. Something I'm gonna ask, because I don't think they know this, and I don't either, because I've never done this. So let's say this: we're 2 couples living together, but not married. How we said, we shacking. But tell me, what legal? I hear it all the time. Oh, she took my this and that. Didn't. Well, after my separation, and they're not married, and I've heard so many different things. Like, if she gets mail, one of the spouses get mail at the house, that means you live there, you part of the house. Should I lose? Do I have to split the house? But they're not married. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this. This has come across. So Tim, let's talk to the shackle uppers right now. They need to know this information. So what protection do they have? Who wants to start that off?
Lady first, but if Jessica defers,
Okay.
I can see it in her. I can see it in her eyes.
Okay.
I have to remember back to my bar exam, common law divorce. Common law marriage rules. But generally, I think, Shannon, it's that you have to be living together. You have to have said, like both of you have said, that, okay, we agree that we are married, and then you have to hold out to others that you're married. And holding out to others could be like, just saying, oh, this is my husband. And it can also be something like both of your names being on the light bill, something like that, that's going to establish proof. And generally, though, it's really hard to establish all of those elements because you can just as easily have that other person say, I never agreed that we were going to be married. And that is one of the requirements. So it's really hard for those things to hold up, even though, like, legally they are legitimate. If you do meet those elements, it's really hard to establish all of that proof. But if you can, then yeah, you have what people call a common law marriage. And if you have a common law marriage, you also have to have a regular divorce. So.
Right.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't, and that's why I asked that question. I've had folks to come to me and ask me that question. So I'm not an attorney. I can't tell you. I've never been in that position to be a common law experience. So I'm glad I had you there, and I'm sure someone wanted to ask that question, but they didn't ask it. So I'm asking it for them. Now,
so
I want everyone.
You brought 2 things.
Yeah.
You brought two things up, Tony, in your hypothetical. You had two issues though. One was a common law issue, and the other was regarding the property. And so that's actually two different, and whether or not, when you have someone living with someone, whether or not they have the right to stay there or can they be put out of the house, that's two totally different issues.
Right. Absolutely. So again, folks, everyone that's watching, this is, again, I have attorney Shannon Holmes of the law firm of Shannon Holmes in Dallas, Texas, and attorney Jessica Crawford of the Jessica Crawford law firm in Humble, Texas, with us this evening. And those who are just now joining us, we're talking about legal family matters, things that you need to know, important things you need to know within your family, to have these pardon papers put up and filed so you can protect your loved one if you happen to leave this earth. So these are things that's important, so you won't leave your family members upset. Family breaks up behind not planning your life together. So it's very important in estate planning, and I've got an expert. Let's go back to that expert, Ms. Jessica Crawford. Tell us a little bit more about estate planning.
Okay, so estate planning, there's really, it's a really broad topic. In general, let's see, I'm trying to figure out even where to start.
Let me just say this. It is very important to have that. All adults need to have an estate planning.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's something that most people actually don't even have estate plans. And so you see a lot of people's money going back to the state or going out in ways that they would not have wanted when they were living. So generally, when you are having an estate plan done, you're getting more than just your will done. You're also generally getting a durable power of attorney done, a medical power of attorney, getting a HIPAA authorization, as well as a living will done. And so really, when you're estate planning, you're not just only planning for your death. You're also planning for life as well. And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to approach the topic a lot of times because they think that it's something that's sad, or they think that it's something that that kind of means that they're approaching the end. But it doesn't have to be that way. Especially the sooner you get it done, and the more proactive you are about it.
Okay, great. Let's go to one of our viewers right now with a question. Hey, Kamika, how are you? Kamika's asking, how much do it typically cost to have an attorney assist a client with securing a will? Just an estimate cost.
Typically.
Oh, okay. We're gonna go to Shannon. Okay, great. Go ahead.
I mean, it depends. I mean, it can never quote another lawyer's fees, but I would say the ballpark, the low end $350 for a basic will. But you're looking more for the complete set of documents, as Jessica described, probably $500 or more for one person, and then some combination. If it's a couple, then there's probably be a discount for the second person. That's typically how it goes on a package deal. So for two people, you'd probably be less than $1,000. But again, every firm is different, and it can never quote another lawyer's fees. But that's ballpark.
Yes.
Yes, I agree that is about the ballpark. And there are a lot of places online where it might say, okay, here's a way that you can just do a will yourself and be able to maybe save some money that way. I would say be really, really careful of those, because when you're working with an attorney, you're working with someone who is going to ask you some questions and maybe present to you some scenarios that you maybe didn't think about. And that's going to leave you more protected than just simply acting on your own, or just acting through a website that's more of just like a fill in the blank money grab type of thing. You're really just be thinking about the fact that this is kind of forever. You're trying to protect your family, and so you need to put the same worth that you have in your family. You need to make sure that you have that in your will.
And to speak to piggyback on that, I think Jessica's right on point. The online documents don't take into account a lot. For instance, typically with my clients, most of my business clients I go through this process with, you've got to account for if you have minors. So what happens if both the parents die at the same time? So you've got to account for the minors in that instance. So what happens if you need documents in place? What happens if both parents are in an accident but aren't killed and the kids are left at school? So who has authority to pick them up and take care of them physically and have access to the money to take care of them during the time that these two parents are incapacitated or unable to take care for the kids? So it goes deeper than just, hey, I want this person to have this. When you get an estate planning done, you want to account for all the different scenarios. And as Jessica said, lawyers are going to typically probe with those types of questions, whereas online documents, you're probably not going to get those same questions asked and answered.
Yes, because I mean, even right now, I'm working with someone who, the people who they want to, care for their children in the case that, the husband and the wife does die, are even completely different people than they want to actually be over the kids' estate. Like, you might think that a person's a really good caregiver, but they're not good with money. And like, we just think about those little things and make sure that that your will truly reflects what you want to happen.
Right.
I'm still here, and that is some great information that you guys are passing on, and this is very important to the people of Southeast Texas here that watches this every week. That these are things that we need to know about our family. We need to have this proper paperwork ready. We never know what's going to happen from day to day. So it's very important. And so now I'm going to go into a little area that and then I'm going to bounce back to something different. I'm going to unfold. I want you guys to unfold this for me. What is the best, let's help the people here. What is the best insurance right now? The whole life insurance, or you think they need to be with a term life insurance?
Well, as you know, I don't think either one of us are probably the most qualified to talk about insurance, but I'll speak for me. I think, again, whole life, it just depends on, it's all about value and cost. And, as we traditionally know, buying whole life, it's best to buy whole life when you're younger. So depending on age, health, and other needs, then, you'd have to, again, visit with a financial services representative, I think. But I think ultimately we get, you need some type of insurance. Let's just make that clear. I think insurance is critical. It's critical for African-American families to be able to pass on generational wealth.
Yes.
For years, the majority, I'll just call them the majority, have used this tool to benefit generations after generation after generations. They do things such as the grandfather will have an insurance policy that will then have benefits for grandkids. And so it skips a generation. So not only will the son of the grandfather benefit, or the kids of the grandparent benefit, but the grandkids will benefit. So you see that opportunity to create, to get into homes and to get into businesses and to advance economically, where traditionally African Americans, we don't take advantage of that product. So, insurance is key. I think visiting with someone who can better advise you on whether it's whole life or term. They have the old saying, Tony, buy term, invest the difference. You pay less for term and you take that other money and put it in mutual funds or stocks, bonds, et cetera. But I think it's just a, based need by need basis in terms of which product is best.
Yeah. And that's another thing. This is why the Black community has been left so far behind, because we do not set up for the future. Setting up our family members, our children, our grandchildren up for the future. And financially, we there's nothing left if we pass away, and there's nothing to leave for them but to bury them. And sometimes they don't have enough of that. So that's why we have that big, huge gap in poverty and rich and the poor,
That's it.
and we always down to the near bottom. And this is why I like doing this. I want to share this wealth of information to the people of Southeast Texas. And one I've got and then let's just stop and say this. Every Sundays and Tuesday evening at 7:30 on Sundays and 8 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm doing the Knowledge is Power podcast for you for 1 hour. Just important information of what we are doing here, what you need to know, just sharing information to you. And on next Tuesday show, I would have the mayor of Port Arthur Mayor Thurman Bill Barty would be joining us, along with City Councilman Robin Mouton and Taylor Neal. So I'd like you guys to join us on Tuesday as well. We're going to talk about city issues, the progress, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. We're going to talk about streets and sewer and drainage, and we're going to talk about all types of things. We're going to ask more about the question and answer session, asking them for information, what they need to know that they do not hear because they do not attend city council meetings. So we want to share some of that news with you on Tuesday. Now, back to my guest today. Back to my super guest today. I've got a question here. This is a very important one I saw here. It's from Andrea Williams. She said, I have 2 special kids and don't trust my ex to do the right thing when it comes to my beautiful kids. So, wait a minute. I didn't read that right. Did I read that right? So she want to know what she should do to protect herself for her kids if something happens to her.
Okay.
And I wish she would sort of type more, maybe like a will set up for her kids, some type of trust for their kids if something happened to her. Maybe we can answer it both ways there.
Yeah, hopefully she'll maybe be able to give us a little bit more information while still being private. But really, the best thing that you can do is to set up a will or set up a trust. There are certain things that you can do immediately to help your kids, like an inter vivos trust. So they can be able to access money even while you're still alive, and it can protect, pretty much only they will be able to touch it, and there will be a trustee to help guide them through the process. So if you think that they would come under any influence or something like that from someone else, then there's a trustee to guide them financially. If that's what you're talking about, Andrea.
Yes, I think she is. I see that she's typed in. It's about a trust. So okay. Yes, it's good to have a trust set up for your kids. To protect them if you shall pass away, and that's very important. And I think Ms. Crawford answered that very well. Don't you think? All right, great. Now let's go back here to another question from let's see here, Mr. Lewis again. Oh, yes, this is it. Here it is. Is it important to estate plan if you anticipate your elderly parents going into long-term care if they are receiving Medicare and Medicaid?
I would say yes. It is. It's always important to do it. It's always important to do it because I think that you're saying if they're having Medicaid or Medicare, that they may or may not have very much money. It's not even necessarily all about the money that you have. It's about the house, the cars, the personal effects, what they want done with those things. Also, in a will, you can put in funeral arrangements and different things like that. So it's not even always about the amount of money, but what the person wants done. So I would say it's always important to have an estate plan.
All right.
I would just add on to that, Robert. Consider, there are specific rules regarding getting Medicaid or Medicare benefits depending upon I think just kind of picking back off Attorney Jessica, is that depending upon the assets that your parents may have, it could prevent them from getting the access to Medicaid and Medicare to help them through the long-term care process. So it is really important to start doing some type of planning to assist with making those decisions. Because when you approach some of these long-term care facilities, they start to ask a lot of those questions about assets.
All right, awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Let's move on to business organization. And this is my cup of tea here, but I'm going to ask the experts. Let's go this route. 30 years ago, I began my career as an owner of a General Motors dealership, franchise dealership. And I attended school in McLean, Virginia, right outside of DC. And it taught me a lot about business, finance, and administration. And after graduating, I learned quite a bit about having a corporation and dealing with going into business. So what I'm going to now is that we need to express or just share those who have dreams of becoming a owner, a business owner, or property owner, or some type of ownership. And I encourage you and every one of you viewers that's watching, especially you young ones, we all have dreams, and those dreams are to have our own business. That's my dream, always been. And I have succeeded that many, many times. But I want to share some things that you need to know what's on the other side of the business that comes with owning business, owning ownership in business, and that is being protected. And when I say being protected, I'm talking about business protection. Should one of my companies or two of my companies was corporations, Inc., INC, out of Delaware. And some of my smallest companies was under a corporation called LLC. So now that I have my attorneys here, I want to kind of help break down that profile for me. Shannon, you'd like to go first with that one?
Sure. I like to just start by making a very simple illustration. So many times I get the question, what's the difference? What is the difference between sole proprietorship and an LLC or a corporation? So what I like to say is, when you're doing business as a sole proprietor, it's simply you.
Right.
It's completely all of you, meaning if you do great, it's you benefit. And then, but if you do bad, if you have a lawsuit specifically, you and everything that you own is subject to that lawsuit. And if you lose in that lawsuit, they have the right to collect from you, with some exceptions, but they have the right to go after everything you have for the most part.
All right.
And I say an asterisk. I put an asterisk by that because there are some exceptions to that, but ultimately you've opened yourself up to that.
Right. I want you one more time. I want you to repeat that one more time because I want them to know this. I know it, but I want you to express that to them and let them know before you even thought about getting into business. That's a difference. Right. One more time. I want my viewers to know exactly what it takes to be in business.
I take pleasure in this section. Absolutely. No, sole proprietorship means you decided you were going to, let's just be basic, Tony. Let's use, cut grass. You're just going to cut grass with, Tony's Lawn Service. Okay. And you don't do anything but just start going out cutting grass. It's Tony's Lawn Service, and everyone on the block is writing a check to Tony's Lawn Service. Okay. If Tony's Lawn Service injures someone or at some capacity gets sued, Tony, you personally are liable for those damages. And if you lose in that lawsuit, everything you've worked for could go to that person. Again, with an asterisk, with some exceptions. There's some rules in Texas that prevent some things, but for the most part, everything you've worked for is subject to that lawsuit. Okay. And then what I like to tell people is, if you're at home right now, take out a piece of paper, put one stick man on the paper, and then put a box around that stick man. Now, if you go and get an LLC, which we'll get into further what that means, or a corporation, you have now insulated that stick man from those damages if Tony's Lawn Service is now a corporation or an LLC, and now Tony's Lawn Service gets sued. The only thing that's subject to that lawsuit is Tony's corporation or Tony's lawsuit, not the 10 million that Tony Renfro personally has made and put in the bank. And so that's the difference. So once you create an entity, it protects our personal hardworking assets. It protects everything we've earned as an individual. Individually, we're protected. It's now just the company. The company is separate from the person. As Tony would now just be a shareholder or a member of the LLC or a shareholder of the company, but it's not Tony personally that assets and liabilities are at stake. That's the biggest difference. And I'll give you this example. So I had a young guy that's an entertainer doing really well. Met with them last week via Zoom and via teleconference because I refuse to meet with anyone right now in person. But we met and I asked him a couple of questions, and he said, he said, man, well, I went down to the county and I filed papers. I said, so did you go to the county and file a DBA, or did you go through the Secretary of State? And he finally said, no, I just went to the county. What that means is he's filed a DBA. That simply means doing business as.
Right.
That's the same thing Tony is. Tony Renfro doing business as Tony's Lawn Service. But again, that still subjects Tony Renfro to any liabilities that may occur through that business.
Right.
Okay. It's not until you file with the Secretary of State in Texas, specifically, we're going to keep it in Texas. If you file documentation with Secretary of State forming an LLC or a corporation, that you now have an entity that's separate from the individual. And then I'll just add this. And I'll just add this one thing. And with that entity, if you get insurance, now your insurance policy for your company will take on any issues you have. When you have a claim, you file it with your insurance and they'll deal with it. So again, you're protected individually.
Shannon, you could explain it no better than that, and that's what I want them to know. That's powerful information there, and a lot of us wants to be in business. Jessica, you like to chime in on this one?
Yes. Well, first of all, I do want to say, Shannon, you explained that beautifully. A lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people do get confused about the importance of the LLC process, and also about how kind of confusing it is, because a lot of people really do think that, okay, if they go up to the county and they do a DBA, they think that then it's done, but it's a kind of a longer process than that. And so I'm just going to go through some of the steps that you have to go through whenever you are creating a business, for example, creating an LLC. So first of all, you have to name it. So you have to do a search, make sure nobody else has your name. You have to choose a registered agent. So that's somebody that's in the state, or a business that's in the state that's going to be able to collect important paperwork on your behalf, including tax forms. Taxes are a really big part of operating a business. You're going to have to file a certificate of formation, and that's the thing that Shannon was saying, that has to be filed with the Secretary of State, and that costs $300. Like, that's not the attorney's fee. That's like the straight up fee that you have to pay to the state to get your LLC actually legitimate. You have to get an EIN number, which that's an employer identification number. You cannot get paid as a business legitimately without having that EIN number. And you have to create an operating agreement. And so it's a multi-step process to establish a business. And it is important that you go through these steps. Right now, we see a lot of people that are it's good that they're so zealous and they're so excited about starting businesses, but there are a lot of people that take to social media right away and buy business and try to start their business. They buy eyelashes and they get on Instagram and then they're like, hey, buy these eyelashes from me. I'll ship them to you. Just pay me through my Zelle account. We want to be able to protect you from if someone essentially reports you for doing that, or if the IRS looks over your taxes and it's like, well, okay, where did all this extra money come from? And then it's found out that you did not go through this multi-step process of getting this business established. So it really is very important to get all of this paperwork done and to follow the steps and to do everything decent and in order, and creating your business the legit way.
Awesome. That's awesome. You couldn't explain it no better than that, because a lot of us get online and we start making t-shirts and think, oh, wow, I'm in business. This is T. Renfro business. But hey, it's a whole, it's just so much to unpack and unwrap in business. If you're going into business, you're going into business the right way, because the IRS is watching. They want to know what type of money, why you get this type of money, or where's it coming from. And you'll find yourself, they're going through your bank account and you say, oh, Lord. But it's important. It's very important to have your business in place, in business in line. And that is getting a proper LLC. So Shannon, share the difference between an LLC and a corp.
Oh, great question. So a number of years ago, the state started coming up with these different entities, and LLC is simply a limited liability company. And it means just that your liability is limited to what you've invested. So, if you have $1,000 invested startup capital and then you go on to make millions, it doesn't matter. Your liability is limited to just what you have invested in the company, just that amount. And it completely limits your personal liability. Again, with an asterisk, assuming you haven't done anything intentional or fraudulent while operating that LLC. And so the LLCs are just easier to operate and navigate. They're easier to set up. They're easier to manage for a small business owner. They don't have as many rules or hoops or hurdles to jump and deal with as a corporation does. And when you're dealing with an LLC, everyone that owns part of that LLC are called members. They are members. They get membership certificates for their the amount that they own in that particular LLC. When you have a corporation, very similar, but the corporation is, we all more familiar with those. That's where, you have your Nike, your Coca-Cola, your ExxonMobil, your Cons, any of the typical businesses here. Typically, the bigger businesses are usually corporations, and they're corporations for a reason. It gives them a lot more flexibility with respect to how they handle their finances, how they raise capital, because there are certain rules and restrictions in terms of how you take on investors, et cetera, in a corporation versus an LLC. So they're very similar. And I mean, we would get real detailed. Even with an LLC, you can have some tax advantages of a corporation. You can file as a S corp, but on the basic level, they operate pretty much the same, but a corporation will require some additional filings annually, require some additional bookkeeping and record keeping.
Right.
So,
and I would suggest those with employees less than 50 people, employees, do an LLC. It's just going to protect you. It's really going to protect you. Now, I'm going to get in one more area and we're going to move on, and that's partnership. A lot of young people get together and say, okay, you have this idea, and we have this idea. We're gonna partner up. We're gonna partner up on this beauty supply store. We're gonna sell wigs and beauty supplies, and I'm just trying to break it down so we can understand what we're doing here. So
no, you're right.
And we're gonna partner up, and it's more than just partnering up. Okay, sometimes it's not good to have a partner. I'm just being honest with you. I've gone into partnership with others just because financially they wanted my financial backing, support. A lot of it didn't turn out right. Some did turn good for those who are dedicated to want to really put an effort in working making it happen. Owning a business is a business. It's nothing to play with. It's a 24-hour business. You have your mind has to stay on business and perseveres. So I want to kind of guys help me out to explain why it's important to have an LLC, having a partnership, making sure that who gets what 51% to 49%, whatever is good for them. Explain that to them why it's important to have an LLC to protect the stockholder or the partner in here. They decided to divorce, who gets what. That's just like a divorce. So how that works?
Let me just say this. Let me just kind of backtrack to the previous question regarding corporations and LLCs and your first question regarding LLCs. One of the things that neither one, Jessica and I, failed to mention is you need an operating agreement if you have an LLC. Right. That's essentially that's your Bible for your company. Right. That's the rule. That's what you can and cannot do. That's what each member can or cannot do. And if you have a corporation, it's called, the bylaws. So when you talk about partnership, you may have two people who've come together, but once if they do a traditional partnership, then it's just that they can form a partnership without an LLC. It just doesn't have the protection of an LLC, and it subjects them to a lot of liability and exposure. They can take that same opportunity and drop it into an LLC, and then, as you say, they could each own 50% of the LLC, and then the operating agreement will then govern how they operate that business. Who can write checks? Who can't write checks? Who can bind the company to a contract? Who can't? Do they need to vote on this? Do they need to vote on that? I mean, it's the rules like Nike, Exxon, it's the same process, even if you're talking about two people running a beauty supply store. Same concept. Absolutely.
That's the question. That was the answer that I was looking for, that you expressed. Jessica, is that something you want to add to that?
I think that he actually explained it really, really well.
Yes, he did.
Because whenever it's kind of similar to the partner, just having a random partnership is kind of similar to just having that sole proprietorship. It's just like you're just going out there and you're just doing it, and it's like there's really not that much protection.
Right.
So really, generally, unless you're kind of a bigger company or whatever, you're really gonna want to go towards being an LLC.
Right.
The general person who's starting an online business or something like that.
Yeah, I've preached that over and over again, that it's very important to have an LLC, especially if you have, not just only if you're having a partner, just if you by yourself have an LLC, it protects you. It protects you being liability. It also helps, they can't sue you, but they can sue the company, the LLC. That protects you from your personal items that you own and you work for in your life, your bank accounts or your home or your cars or whatever. It's a protection. So if you had to file bankruptcy, that company goes under and you file bankruptcy, you only file bankruptcy on that LLC.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. And when I said and generally, I'm not saying that everybody will need to have an LLC. Maybe that's not necessarily the structure for everyone, but to be thinking in that vein of trying to protect yourself and trying to separate that liability out is what you need to be thinking about if you're trying to start a business.
Wow, we covered a lot of information here. We covered a lot today, and guys, I thank you so much for joining me and volunteering to come on board with me and sharing this information to my community. And my community needs all the information they can gather, and I hope it reaches someone out there. And I hope that the viewers out here that's watching this show will share it with their friends and discuss it, sit at the table and talk about some of the things that we've gone over, and just share it with them so they can see this. But always, if they need any help, legal help, right now I have two of the best, Shannon Holmes of the law firm of Shannon Holmes, PLLC in Dallas, Texas, and the lovely attorney Jessica Crawford of the Jessica Crawford law firm in Humble, Texas. And don't feel like you can't do this, but it's very easy. Shannon, I want you to share your information to the audience. I didn't have it, but I have Jessica information. If you would like to reach Jessica online, video, or by just going online and reaching out to her and for advice or just her service. And I will be contacting you too, Jessica. And it is jessicacrawfordlaw.com. Shannon, would you share your information?
Absolutely. It's pretty easy. It's ShannonAHolmes.com. ShannonAHolmes.com. That's it.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to have you on again on a Sunday evening. And again, on Tuesday, I'm going to have the mayor of Port Arthur, Thurman Bartee, and also the city of Beaumont councilman, Robin Mouton, and Tyler Neal are going to be joining us on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. This Tuesday, May 25th. Isn't it 25th, 26th? Whatever day. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Knowledge is power. And it's always important to have power, and we have the knowledge. We can. Let me just say this. I want to close this out by this. If we have knowledge, knowledge is power. Now we need to unite, come together as a community. We can be unstoppable if we can just unite. That's important. Thank you, everybody. God bless. Love you. See you Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tony. Thank you very much.
Hey, y'all stay aboard. I want to visit you all backstage. How about that? Okay.
Okay.
That works.